Hi, I'm Klemundt, and this is Firefighters and Fire Trucks Getting Ice Cream. In part 2 of the Dave Emanuel episode, we are cruising around in a 1988 E1 Hurricane, previously owned by the Montebello Fire Department. We just finished picking up some ice cream shakes from Handel's Ice Cream in Rancho Cucamonga, a local favorite, and now we're pulling up to Red Helmet Training, my classroom facility in Rancho Cucamonga as well. We're going to take a quick tour and then sit down and finish up our conversation in part 2. The main topic of part 2 is going to be bullying in the fire service. Dave is the fire chief of Durham, New Hampshire, and speaks about this topic all over the country, and he is really charging forward to make change. So here we go, part 2 with Dave Emanuel, the Durham, New Hampshire Fire Chief.
Opportunities are so cool, like the guys are so trusting to give us a fire engine and go out and drive that rig around. I'm just excited to see your digs, man. I think this is cool. Alright, so this is Red Helmet Training. Welcome to the 5,500 square feet of learning. Beautiful. Yeah, we stayed pretty busy. We have 4 classrooms, a conference room, a bookstore, and a couple of offices. This is classroom 1 right here.
I like the Chiefs helmet, man. Number 1. We're here in classroom 1.
Classroom 1. We were actually going to put helmets over all of the doors and actually have different a red helmet for the company officer classroom and a
That's right, because you have lots of different colors and lots of different programs.
yeah, blue helmet training is our EMS division, black helmet is our wildland, and yeah, so there's pretty much every color you could think of.
Nice.
Probably don't want to have a purple helmet training, but other than that, we got the rest of the colors. So yeah, this is classroom 1. It seats about 40, and like I said, we teach all kinds of different classes in here, from leadership to strategy and tactics and things like that. So
Beautiful.
now, classroom 2 is our smallest. It probably seats a little over 20. It kind of gets crowded after that. But this is also our tactics and strategy classroom.
Wow, I know it's not set up right now. This is cool.
Yeah, this is our tabletop simulator. It's all HO scale model railroad stuff, and this is actually how Red Helmet Training started 7 years ago as a tabletop digital simulation company, and we've just continued to grow from there. But if this was all set up, we could have like 5 tables worth of stuff.
Jesse, my cousins were all dairy farmers, so I can especially relate to the Holstein calf grazing on top of the post office.
My 4-year-old was in here playing the other day, so but yeah, this is the tactics and strategy classroom, and we do multi-casualty on here, hazmat, structure fire.
So you set up the whole community and everyone works their responses through.
Yeah, we have high rises, we have large churches, we have a Lowe's big box store. It's pretty cool. We just continue to just grow. I'm really bad, and I just keep buying new buildings and new cars and new toys.
Did you tell me that even the hose lengths were scaled to HO scale?
Yep, even the hose length, the little strings are completely to scale. This is the bookstore. We actually contract with Firefighter Bookstore to actually be able to rent and sell textbooks, and we always also have, besides the textbooks, a lot of just the authors that are out there doing really cool stuff in the fire service.
Absolutely. I mean, we talk about It's Your Shift by Captain Arbischoff. I mean, that you're hitting it. That's today's fire service.
Oh, yeah.
So where are we going? How are we going to get there?
Yeah, and a lot of these, the cool thing is because I have a lot of presenters here, we have some of the editions that are signed.
Yeah, I
and
can't
got some
imagine.
Middorf signed books, and
That's cool.
It stays pretty busy, and it's pretty cool. But and we have a lot of this is some cases from Fire Memories Museum. It's a fire museum that was down the way a little bit. They closed down a couple of about a year ago now, and they donated a lot of equipment with the glass cases so we could display some of that to try to keep that tradition in the fire service alive. So that's where that is. T-shirt rack with your favorite T-shirt. I fight fires because the voices in my head tell me to. I know.
Voices in my head tell me to. Awesome.
This is our sand table. We have a sand table and a burn table.
Now, what's the sand table?
So the sand table we do wildland tactics on. We've also done some urban search and rescue on here and disaster preparedness training, but most of the time we do this for wildland. And we have all the miniature cars on here, just like anything else. And then our burn table is actually a 16-foot table. We cover that with sand,
and then we cover that with hamster bedding, and we actually light it on fire.
So the burn table burns.
Oh yeah, it burns really well. And
wow.
Every engine gets a 3 cc syringe of water. Water tenders get a 10, and they have their hose lines and helicopters and hand crews, and we do wildland firefighting on the table on miniature scale.
So you're getting your real-time cognitive thinking as things are going down right before you. That's cool.
And literally, you'll see the firefighters that are working towards becoming company officers and chief officers. Yeah, over these little cardstock buildings, freaking out when they're torching off.
That's cool.
Yeah, we were doing these types of balsa wood buildings, but we found that these little cardstock ones are pretty cool. They literally just digital printer. We fold them up, throw some tape on them, and they're really easy to remanufacture and kind of get on the table.
Beautiful.
Works out really well.
Hey, strong work, man.
Yeah. So like I said, we have a conference room, and then
hey, I like the fire brands. It's classic.
Well, like I said, Fire Memories Museum has given us just a lot of quality fire memorabilia.
I know. Who's that guy?
Yeah, that's me when I was a fire explorer, like we were talking about. And this is at an open house event when I was a fire explorer in San Francisco City. This is me in the fire academy.
That's funny.
Jack on the helmet, can't go wrong with that. But these are some of my younger pictures in the hallway here.
We're still trying the same uniform, dude. That's funny.
We're still trying to decorate this place. So there's an EMS classroom in there, skills room, and a couple offices. This is the class flyers.
You guys have a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, the hallway is always filled with class flyers of upcoming courses. So it's like I said, 5,500 square feet of learning.
Nice.
And it's always busy. We're here on a Saturday, so there's not much going on. But you come down here on a weekday.
Well, just the EMT classes, not much.
There's an EMT class going. Yeah, we couldn't go in the other two classrooms because there's an EMT refresher class going on.
I'm gonna dress down if you guys don't mind.
By all means. I don't know. I really love the bow tie, but we'll let you take it off. That means you're down to business, right?
Going down to business. Yes, sir. Going down to business.
Is that how it is at your fire department? When you take off the bow tie, they know that it's about to go down? Or?
It's going down right now. It's going down right now.
And you're not even wearing a fake one. You're doing it up.
I'm doing it up, man.
I like it. So it's funny when we start talking about 5,500 square feet of learning, but even a bigger scope or scale square footage of learning. You and me met at Firehouse Expo in Nashville, and great conference. Get to do a lot of great teaching and learning out there. But you were teaching a class kind of fairly new to the fire service, which I thought was just outstanding and dynamic. But what were you teaching out there?
Very, very kind.
It's actually funny. I'm like, it was actually very dynamic. What was it? I wasn't remembering. I wasn't trying to say it like that, but
no, I like to do them. I'm not a static guy. I'm not very sitting still. Isn't my strength. You talk to anybody I've worked with through my career.
Right, but yeah, bullying in the fire service. I mean, the new classes you're out there doing. So how did that go out, and where did you start that?
That's a great question. I had worked for the Durham Fire Department for a number of years. My wife worked on campus. I had a mentor guide me through the channels, saying, "Hey, it's time for you to go back to school again. Come take a master's level class with me." And I started the master's program, and in one of the leadership classes at the University of New Hampshire, I opened the door on toxic leaders, and then one article from the Harvard Business Review, toxic leadership. And as I was studying the article to do my report out, I started putting initials in the margin next to different paragraphs, and I was like, that's kind of weird.
Right.
Point taken, keep moving. The next chapter, I was at the National Fire Academy for the Executive Fire Officer program, and trying to figure out what to write my first paper about. And one of the instructors said, "You should look at bullying in the fire service." I'm telling you, just start. So we put together.
Why did we peg you? Because you're wearing a bow tie? I don't get it.
I don't know. I was looking to hit a high mark. I said, what can I do that nobody else has done? There's a lot of plans on succession planning or improving your organization. We didn't find any on bullying. So I started to do some research with the University of New Hampshire Survey Center. We surveyed the state of New Hampshire. We surveyed our local organization. I started to do reading, and the more I read, the more initials I'd put in the margin from either an organization I had worked with over time or the way different leaders work with people. And Firehouse Expo gave me an opportunity to talk about it with other people. And the first time I presented, I wasn't sure how I was going to go. I had done it at the New Hampshire Fire Academy and for local work groups, but when I did it on the national platform, I had couple people came after the program to see me and said, you know, I've had some really dark thoughts, and I've been in some really dark places in my firehouse. And, you know, I'm ex-military. I've done A, B, C, D, E, and F, and what you just told me, you just validated what's going on in my head.
Wow.
And I really thought it was me, and I've contemplated A, B, C, and D. And I said, do you have a number for your EAP program? You know, and we started an offline conversation for how to help this person out, and afterwards I was like, that was a much larger impact than I had ever anticipated, and I knew we were onto something.
And it's not like the schoolyard bullying where it's the crew picking on the probie all the time. I mean, it's throughout all ranks.
It can be. You know, the research I've studied, bullying is predominantly top down, but it can come from bottom up, and it can come peer to peer. So all levels in an organization.
Right.
And nobody's safe. We know that there are certain kinds of organizations, such as hierarchical organizations, where there's a power imbalance, or by nature there's a chain of command that can enable people to act certain ways.
Right.
We know that when we work 24-hour shifts or long shifts of duration,
like a family together
in a family environment,
right.
You know, you get all the good things, but you can also get all the bad. And sometimes if mom or dad isn't there to watch the candy store, or even worse, if mom and dad's involved, I'm telling you, this it can impact people's lives personally. It can impact their career, and it impacts the organization, because you can't perform if you don't have the trust of your crew. And bullying, harassment, and workplace violence,
right?
You know, it's all detrimental to the crew, which is detrimental to our mission in the fire service.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I mean, it's definitely a message that we continue to see get out there, and I'm glad you're taking it on.
Well, you know, I was fortunate because when my first paper was published, the International Association of Fire Chiefs, under the direction of David Daniels, reached out and said, "Hey, we're putting together a committee, and we have a task group to look at workplace violence,
right.
bullying, and harassment in the fire service," and they hooked me. And we've been presenting at the IAFC and Firehouse Expo, and I'm actually speaking on topic at the EFO Symposium next month, the National Fire Academy.
Great.
And I think it's not a fire service issue. This is a person issue, a worldly issue. It doesn't just happen to us, but we have a lot of the conditions that enable it, and we rely on each other in a different environment than people who work in other service industries.
Right.
And you know, every second matters. Everything we do matters, and we need to treat each other with dignity and respect to get our job done, to serve the people. Why are we here? We're here to serve the public. We're here to do good things.
Right.
And poor working relationships, toxic environments, narcissistic leaders, they're all counterproductive for us. And you know,
right.
The thing I think about is it's not just stop being the bully, because I mean, people are affected whether you're the bully, the victim, or the bystander. Because if, you know, in some environments, when you're the officer on duty and you come to the kitchen table and one of your superiors or someone that works for you starts nailing you for things that you do it the same way as everyone else in your organization does, but they only nail you. You know, it's our jobs as fire service leaders to say, hey, time out. You know, we just crossed the line. This isn't appropriate anymore.
Right. And a lot of times, I mean, the bully sometimes doesn't even know that they're just thinking like, look, I'm just doing my job, or this is normal in a firehouse, or or maybe that's just that's how I was treated when I was coming up as a firefighter. You just see so many facets of it that literally you're being a bully. No, I'm not. You getting through that culture change of, well, what is a bully? Defining that,
or just having a disconnect. You're absolutely right. Or
right.
That's the way we've always done it. You know,
right? It becomes normalized. You know, the pranks in the fire station were, kind of the staple of some tradition. But like we're talking about, where it is across the line from, it's great to have fun, but obviously there's a line that it becomes harassment at that point.
When does a prank turn into it's not funny anymore?
Right.
How many times does it need to happen before it's not funny?
Yeah.
Or with what we're talking about now, we're digging into who you are as a person, not just about whether you shined your shoes or set the table right or wrong. We're talking about you.
Yeah.
Your values and beliefs.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, that's an awesome message. I'm glad you're out there doing that. I mean, and that just continues to come full circle back where, as a new fire chief, some of the leadership stuff you're out there doing. I mean, it's definitely great to get that package deal getting it from Dave, like, look, I don't only teach leadership, but this is actually a huge platform that we're bouncing off of, and really leadership in the firehouse. Hanging out with Steve Przybowski yesterday, he was doing Courage Under Fire. That was his class. It's the same type of thing. It's having the courage, the leadership ability, the empowerment to do it, to stand up to bullying or things that you see going on in the fire station.
You're right, and I think you hit it in the truck on the way here. You know, there's two things that firefighters don't like: the way things are and change,
and the way things,
And you know, we're just looking at, you know, some of it working on a university campus. There's some academia in our surroundings. The research institution that funds billions of dollars of research is literally in the same building that the fire station is in. We're attached. Right. And you can't run and hide from this stuff. So to look at ourselves as leaders, admit you're a leader, whether you want to be or not, and you don't have to be the fire chief to be a leader. You know, I think some of the people with the most impact are the company officers, because they're in the middle of it every day, and the informal leaders in our firefighters ranks. They can make or break the culture of your organization, of our organization.
Right.
And it's just, your fire chiefs are bound more than anybody else between the budget, the policy, the town council, the governance structure. You know, I don't get to make as many decisions as people think I do for an organization.
Right.
It's the men and women in the fire department that say, hey, let's agree to a mission. Let's agree to culture. Let's agree to values. What's important to us, and what can we do to serve the people, and how are we going to do it?
Right.
And it all starts with how we treat each other.
Yeah. And it's in the fire service, we always talk about the fire chiefs making all the decisions, but like you said, most of your decisions are defined or confined for you, where at that company officer level, you're throwing more audibles. It's, you know, hey, where's the rule book for this, or they're time sensitive, where it forces you to sometimes make the bad decision. You know, hey, I should have done something differently, but because it was such a time-pressed issue, I unfortunately made a bad decision. Where a lot of the, you know, decisions you make in the fire chief's office, they might have more of a time lag to it, or a thing that you can actually, even just reaching out to other individuals, other fire chiefs or other people, like, hey, my fire department's going through this. What do you think? But going out there on the streets, interacting with Mrs. Smith, and making those really close-knit, tight decisions for the fire department, and being the steward of the fire department, if you will, out on the streets.
One of the things that connects for me is going into programs, whether it's through Red Helmet, or whether it's at the national programs, or the National Fire Academy, or the regional symposiums that we go to. You know, some people on the job with me say, hey, you're away too much. But when I flip it around and say, but I met this guy who has had this deal that's really similar to us, or when I'm working with a battalion chief who tells me what she has done to forward her fire department, I come back home. Yeah. They're like, oh, geez, you better than another conference again. But I feel enlightened and empowered, and I have a peer support network of you guys that I know I can call somebody from New Hampshire to California,
especially
and say,
the National Fire Academy. I mean, that is literally the best connecting place you could ever have.
It lifts the weight off my shoulders, and it lets me refocus and change the lens, and say to our crew, hey, maybe let me ask you guys a few questions, because I'm not sure I understand.
Right.
And it puts us closer to a labor management collaborative effort where we both want to be, and we can solve our own problems, as opposed to having someone to solve them for us.
Well, just like me and you were hanging out at breakfast this morning, and we were talking about how we were talking about the data and getting that data out, and we were talking about how I met a company officer up for East Contra Costa County, Rob, the other day, and they put out a monthly stat thing like most fire departments do. Hey, this is how many run calls we did last month, and how many fires, and any of those out of the norm incidents or school tours and stuff like that. But he took that from just, hey, not just our Facebook and our social media and our Twitter and just putting out stats and numbers, but getting the community involved. You know, I saw a video. He went out with the high school football team and had the whole high school football team in their locker room announce, okay, last month, in the month of January, the East Contra Costa County Fire Department ran this many calls, and they did this out in the community. This is what your fire department's doing for you. And then you get to see the entire football team huddle up, you know, and give their mantra for the school.
It's new and innovative. I mean, we have to be looking at things like when we talk about extreme leadership, or it's your ship, or any of the business authors that have remarkably parallel tracks
Right.
to mission, goals, and objectives, real-time decision making right now, that are so parallel to the fire service. We need to come around to some of the different business models, and some of these, where the fire service is done forever, as part of the tradition. But sometimes, when you flatten out the organizational pyramid, and we all work together, we can achieve new heights. And some of that is the culture of the fire service. It's the future of the fire service, whether it's working with the Fallen Firefighters Foundation. On this past month, we had one of our firefighters present on after-action reporting. And, I said, let's take it one step further. Can we look at pre-action reporting, pre-incident reporting too, or pre-event planning? And they said, well, how can you, that's pre-planning, that's old. And I said, well, what if we know that we're going to have a department function, and we know what we did wrong last time, and we know how it went, and we know we've identified things that we can do better next time we do it.
Right.
Does that make sense? So we can do that going into events that we plan for, whether it's homecoming, Halloween, Cinco de Mayo, commencement. Right. We know things that trip us up. We keep getting better. And then after the event, we turn around and say, what do we do well? What can we improve upon? And how are we going to change it for next time? And share it openly in an open learning environment with again, with dignity and respect on a flat level. So it's not somebody picking at the captain or the chief. Everybody knows that this is a neutral environment. We can put our bow ties on the table, talk about them without judgment, and all learn. And not just learn on our shift, but share it with the other shifts. So the whole company's moving forward. The whole fire department moves together. We're trying to break down some of the silos that we've had before to make an impact.
Well, and the funny thing is, my previous fire chief, he was actually in the Marine Corps for many years, and some of that shined through, obviously, the way he ran the organization. But one of the things that he always created was basically these things called pass-down binders. We had an annual Easter egg hunt, we had an annual pancake breakfast, and things that we would do on a normal, whether it was open house or whether it was fire prevention week. And the goal was, look, if you get run over by a fire engine tomorrow, I want to be able to hand this binder to somebody and go, hey, this is what you need to do. Because stuff would get lost, through the cracks a lot of times. We would do the Easter egg hunt. We would purchase all the eggs. That's easy. We got the bunny costume clean from the year before and things like that. But then all of a sudden you show up at the baseball field out at the park, and there's a baseball game going on. Oh, we forgot to secure a permit because we think, we're so closely tied to the city, well, we don't have to do that, or we forgot to do that. So having that pass-down binder, and in today's world with a thumb drive, it can literally be, hey, sorry, you get open house this year.
Makes all the difference in the world. I can see what you did last time.
Oh, I have to get porta potties and a bounce house, and where did we get them from last year, and how much did it cost?
Did the committee not meet enough times beforehand? Or if we had met 3 months, we would have roadmapped this out, and with our working relationship would be good.
Right.
Do we have the same expectations, and what do we need to do to hit them next time?
Right. It's amazing, some things that we literally do on an annual basis are such a surprise or such an emergency, when it's like, we just did this last year, it's still the exact same thing. It's always comical to me sometimes, we literally hydrostatic test our bottles every 5 years, and for whatever reason, 5 years from now, we'll be out of SCBA bottles in the entire department because we're all trying to hydrostatic them on the same day. It's it's a crazy just world of what's some of the things that we can really refer back to and go through that process.
On the positive side of things, we have people with initiative that are doing the right thing and that want the best for the organization, and we need that extra level of coordination to loop everybody in.
Right. Yeah. Keep it moving forward. It's not about just going to fires and spraying water. It's not. No, there's a lot of other things that go underneath that. Yeah. Well, Dave, it's been great to hang out with you.
Thank you. Before we break, can I just have one more comment?
You cannot teach me how to tie a bow tie right now, but yeah, please, by all means.
We've been thinking about the recent line of duty death of Joel Barnes, Captain Joel Barnes from the Berwick, Maine Fire Department, and I wanted to have this conversation in his memory to honor him for doing he paid the ultimate sacrifice, and he saved his partner in a real world incident that was trying to save lives and do our mission. And our brothers and sisters in New England have been thinking this has been very heavy for us the past couple of weeks. And one of my favorite music educators died this past week as well here in LA. I was hoping to see him on this trip. And, you know, little people make a big difference. And the drop in the pond, when the ripples go out, you know, if we can all think of the people that have helped to move us forward and the good things that have brought us to mentored us or helped us make good decisions, if anything we can do to help other people do the same thing, I'm in with both feet.
That's
Jesse,
awesome.
Thank you for having me.
We dedicate this issue then to Joe and his family, and appreciate that very much. Thanks for coming out and hanging out with me for a while, Dave, and we will see you out on the circuit soon somewhere.
Absolutely.
On the next tour.
Coming to a community near you.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you, Jesse.
All right.
Yeah, baby. Thanks for having me.